Incredible act of heroism. Janitor's son saves millionaire's daughter, drowning in pool, revealed. The sun blazed overhead as Alex squinted against the searing light. Lifeguarding was supposed to be just an easy summer gig, but today felt heavier. He focused on the shimmering surface of the pool, the laughter of children echoing over waves, but it was the unease gnawing at him that kept him alert. This neighborhood was a stark contrast to the one he inhabited, where a $500 pair of swim trunks was the norm, something he could never fathom. His father's voice drifted into his mind like an echo from the past. Integrity happens when no one's watching. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this idyllic scene was nothing but a mirage, reminding him that beneath the surface, the same complexities lie hidden. As he watched Emma, billionaire's daughter, fan favorite, always surrounded by her entourage, he felt an instinctive pull, a desire to know her beyond the privilege shrouding her existence. But the weight of the pocket change he had in his purse echoed loudly against the wealth displayed. He tried to suppress his longing for acknowledgement as he admired her carefree spirit. Before he could contemplate more, Emma suddenly slipped beneath the water, her laughter replaced by panic. The sight sent waves of dread crashing over him. He hyperventilated, heart racing as adrenaline surged through his veins. What would his dad say? Fear gripped him, but the instinct wire tied to duty snapped tight. With one powerful motion, he dove into the depths, the cold water shocking his senses, driving out hesitation. As he inched toward her drowning form, desperation clung onto him, urging him to save her, his very lifeline against his fears. He surfaced, pulling Emma to safety, both of them gasping for air. This unexpected act spiraled out, drawing attention like wildfire. Whispers morphed into sensational articles that branded him as a hero. Janitor's son saves millionaire's daughter. Words ricocheted off his mind, igniting a conflation of pride and disbelief. But recognition came at a cost. With glittering eyes focused on him, Alex felt like a misfit in a world glossed over with privilege. The whirlpool of attention tugged at his very identity. Could he hold fast to his father's wisdom when it felt like all eyes scrutinized him, the janitor's son? A crackling tension lingered deep within. Chasing dreams in a realm where he was often perceived as an interloper only intensified the internal dialogue of inadequacy. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As summer waned, Alex fought an internal battle that churned between his longing for Emma and the gnawing fear of drifting further from his roots. The closer their friendship grew, the more alien he felt in her realm, where his worth was questioned by his background. He found himself at a crossroads as Emma's idea of a glamorous trip abroad set in motion unyielding pressure. A gentle push from her world clawed at every strung emotion within him. He stood by the pool's edge, echoing the life-threatening moment, grappling with his own ties to those foundational lessons engulfing him now. Could he embrace both? Or would he gamble the authenticity forged in years of hardship for a fleeting glimpse of acceptance? The last rays of sunlight glinted off the water, a chilling reminder. Alex took a deep breath, his heart lodged in his throat, facing the precipice of his choices. As the first leaves of fall began to crinkle underfoot, Alex found himself increasingly ensnared in the web of his new identity. The summer's heroics had painted a picture of him that was both alluring and suffocating. No longer just the janitor's son, he was now infused with the essence of valor. But heroism, as he grappled with its more profound layers, did not shield him from the chilling absence of direction. Emma's invitation to join her family on an extended vacation loomed over him like a shadow, enticing yet monstrous. He considered her bright smile, the ease with which she had entered the elite circle, and a pang of yearning and resentment surged within him. What does she see in me? He wondered. The sheer wealth of the experience felt alien, and although Emma seemed to embrace their connection, he felt the undercurrents of doubt dragging him deeper into the water, rather than lifting him onto shores of acceptance. Decision time glared at him like the morning sun, weighing on him, brewing a storm of indecision. Should he leave everything behind for a taste of this new life? Perhaps this trip would legitimize him in the eyes of others. Or was it a mask to hide the insecurities that clung to him like the scent of chlorine? Each thought spiraled, barely processing before crashing into the next as he paced the edge of the pool where it all began. Alex's father called this moment the crossroad. It was a juncture that many face when life demands a choice. The pursuit of dreams versus the grip of reality. He could hear his father's voice, firm yet loving, floating in his memory. Live what you believe, not what others expect of you. Could he remain true to that amidst the glaring expectations? Teeth clenched, he pushed himself into action, his thoughts racing toward a solitude he feared but craved. After his shift, he confidently stepped into the local library. It was a place he fondly revisited in emotional upheavals, seeking clarity through the pages of countless stories. He settled on non-fiction, biographies of individuals who had resisted the tidal forces of expectation. Each turn of the page illuminated paths of struggle and self-affirmation. Armed with wisdom from lives both understood and repelled, Alex penned several affirmations of self-worth that echoed throughout those pages, a stark reminder of the roots he never wanted to uproot. He needed a pillar to steady the turbulence swirling within him. His decision now lay along a delicate thread that seemed perpetually frayed, but held the weight of reality. Emma and the grand trip abroad, or the authenticity that shaped him. In that quiet haven among books, he encountered a reflection of raw ambition, a determination he had long since buried. The next day, the tension swelled anew as he ventured to Emma's house, notebook clutched tightly in his hand. The prospect of confessing felt like teetering on the edge of a diving board, weightless, yet laden with uncertainty. Would his honesty sever the already fragile connection, or would it ignite the respect he feared he had to earn in her eyes? "Can we talk?" he managed to say softly as Emma opened the door. The sunlight behind her framed her figure, illuminating the very essence that would either solidify their bond or dislodge him from her cozy world of privilege. His heartbeat pounded in rhythm, with the waves of apprehension lapping at his consciousness as he took a breath, facing the burgeoning courage he had nurtured within the library. "Sure," she replied, a curious tilt to her head, but he was so wrapped in his own doubts that he barely noticed the intrigue in her eyes. He raised his notebook, the answer he sought entrenched within its pages, and plunged forward, his heart aflame with fear and hope. Weaving through the uncertainty of what he would say, demanded all he had. As Alex stepped over the threshold of honesty, a pivotal moment mounted around them. Would Emma understand the script of his fears, or would he find the cost of honesty greater than he anticipated? The moment hung delicately, pulsing with anticipation, ready to clash against his fragile resolve. The weight of Alex's confession hung thick in the air, crackling with unspoken words and raw vulnerability. He flipped open his notebook, fingers trembling against the pages, as if they were the very key to unlocking the emotions trapped inside him. "I've been thinking a lot about who I am," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma's expression softened, yet there remained a glimmer of uncertainty in her eyes. The barrier of wealth and status seemed to create invisible walls between them, and he desperately wanted to bridge that gap. "You know how you invited me on that trip? I'm not sure if I can. or if I even belong in that space, he forced out. Each word felt like tearing off a layer of armor he had built around himself. As he continued, a deeper realization began to surface. This wasn't merely about a vacation or fitting in. It was about accepting his own worth, about confronting the labels that others placed upon him. I know what I did last summer made some people see me differently, but I worry that these expectations are clouding what I want for myself, he confessed. Emma noticed the quivering of his voice, the way his concepts of self-worth were intertwining with her perceptions. "Alex, you saved my life," she replied, breaking through his anxiety with conviction. "That doesn't define who you are, but it certainly adds to the story." Her eyes sparkled with admiration, yet he sensed she had no idea about the ache within him. "But I'm still just the janitor's son," he rebutted, the sting of shame creeping back into his tone. "I'm still the same person, trying to figure it all out, and—" "You can be more than the labels they give you," Emma interrupted, her voice firm. "You don't have to live for others' approval. We all have our battles, Alex. I have mine too. The pressure to keep up, to be perfect, it's exhausting." For a moment they exchanged mutual understanding. It was refreshing, the idea that the weight of success was a burden shared, not just with silvery spoons and polished exteriors, but also with the heartbeats and vulnerabilities that lay beneath. Their struggles melded together as Alex realized he wasn't just fighting to prove himself. He was striving to validate his existence. The conversation shifted, the dynamic evolving into an exploration of their dreams. Emma spoke animatedly about her aspirations to pursue art, to escape the confines of her enforced identity, her voice revealing the passion that pulsed beneath her affluent facade. Listening to her ignited something within Alex, as he shared his own hopes of studying the sciences, of impacting lives through innovation. He was startled to feel a rush of enthusiasm he hadn't experienced in years. Each word reignited the embers of ambition he had long thought extinguished. Yet the elation mingled with tension. The realization struck him that stepping into new opportunities would challenge not just their relationship, but his own understanding of worth. Would this new path come at the cost of self-discovery, or would it empower both of them to bloom into their authentic selves? Emma leaned closer, her gaze steady. "So, what do you want, Alex? What would you choose between the trip or staying true to yourself?" The question hung there, echoing in the silence of his hopes and fears. He opened his mouth, ready to articulate the conditions of his newfound determination, yet before he could speak, another thought pierced through. Were his choices truly his, if they constantly revolved around others' expectations? His stomach churned with the need for clarity and confrontation, uncertainty laced with a sense of liberation. As the sun dipped on the horizon, casting long shadows around them, the answer slipped away as quickly as it had come. Alex felt the pull toward both paths, feeling more adrift than ever. "Do you think I can redefine myself?" he finally murmured, raising a question that was not merely about personal choice, but about the essence of identity itself. A daring exploration into the unknown, waiting to be unfolded. Emma smiled, eyes alight with understanding. "I think you have a lot to offer. It's about believing that." She paused, the weight of their shared moment hanging in the air, before adding, "But the true test lies ahead, Alex. Are you ready to face it?" The challenge flickered in their gaze, a threshold demanding commitment to the truth, and with it an anticipation enveloped them, whispering of choices yet to be made, paths yet to be tread. As the shadows deepened, Alex felt something irreplaceable shift within, nudging him to take that leap into the unknown. Alex's pulse quickened as he stared at the notebook, a vessel containing not just words, but the burgeoning possibilities of his identity. Emma's words echoed in his mind. The true test lies ahead. It was more than a moment. It was a catalyst, pushing him toward a precipice where self-discovery awaited. In the days that followed, Alex wrestled with the weight of his decision, each moment on the brink of transformation. He could feel the shift in his own perception, as though he were slowly peeling back the protective layers he had built around himself. The hallways of school felt both expansive and constricting. The whispers and looks from classmates, steeped in expectation, lingered in the air like smoke, suffocating but oddly familiar. He had always been the quiet one, the one who blended into the background, an unremarkable shadow of a janitor's son. But as he moved through the labyrinth of his thoughts, a spark ignited the question. Why not step into the light? He could almost hear Emma's encouraging voice, urging him to break free from the venomous grip of doubt. "You have a lot to offer," she had said. Yet as self-doubt crept back in, it masked itself as pragmatism. What if pursuing his dreams meant isolating himself from Emma and the world he had known? He envisioned her laughing amongst her affluent friends, while he struggled under the weight of ambition no one seemed to think he could achieve. His heart twisted at the thought of leaving anything behind, yet to remain stagnant felt like a betrayal to himself. With a resolve tightening around him, Alex sought the solace of late-night study sessions. Endless hours spent at the library became his sanctuary, each whispered term and equation aligning like constellations guiding him. He was determined to secure a scholarship, an opportunity that signified not just academic excellence, but a validation of his worth. One humid afternoon, he stumbled upon an article about an innovation competition that promised mentorship opportunities, investment, and grant funding for groundbreaking projects. His heart raced at the thought of making a tangible impact on society. The excitement was intoxicating, but as quickly as it blossomed, self-doubt choked it. How could he compete with students who attended expensive schools, embedded in networking circles? The uncertainties chased each other in a chaotic dance, preying on his ambition with spiteful whispers. Yet recalling his conversation with Emma ignited a flicker of resolve. He would need to confront not just the competition, but the barriers he perceived within himself. It wasn't merely about the potential for success. It was about reaching for the horizon and pulling his dreams into existence. With his resolve firming, Alex took a deep breath and began outlining his project, a sustainable water filtration system designed for low-income communities. It wasn't just a project born from intellectual curiosity. It was rooted in his life, his experiences, the stories of people around him. The anxiety shifted into clarity as he began crafting his proposal, each word representing a key to unlock his identity. For too long, he had lived up to a narrative written by others. Now, with every hour spent fine-tuning his ideas, he was constructing something new, his own narrative. A world where he stepped boldly into the spotlight, not just as the janitor's son, but as an agent of change, ready to redefine his story. But the shadows loomed, doubt clawing back with fervor. Would he have the courage to present his work, to bear his aspirations in front of those who might judge? As the deadline for submissions approached, anxiety wrestled with exhilaration. The moment of truth loomed closer, and suddenly Alex found himself at a crossroads once again. Could he embrace this opportunity without losing the bonds he held precious, especially the budding friendship with Emma? In the flickering light of realization, Alex understood. This was more than a project. It was his chance to step into the identity he had longed for, the chance to confront not just his fears, but define his worth beyond the labels. He felt a surge of purpose, yet the challenges that awaited still whispered warnings of failure. With the submission date fast approaching, he took a step back from his notes. One question lingered in his mind, echoing louder than ever. Could he truly reshape his future, or would he remain confined to the shadows he longed to escape? As the submission date inched closer, Alex's focus sharpened, yet the spectre of doubt loomed larger than ever. Each revision of his proposal became a battleground, where confidence clashed against the relentless barrage of insecurities. He could picture his peers, polished and poised, flaunting resources that gave them an undeniable edge. How could he possibly measure up? That evening, he stretched his fingers over the keyboard, staring blankly at the half-finished document. With the clock ticking, every moment felt as though it was taunting him. What if he poured his heart into this and still came up empty? The whispers of past failures echoed, casting shadows over his determination. The journals decorated with scribbled ideas became a source of angst rather than inspiration. In a fleeting moment of frustration, he slammed his palm down, the sound vibrating through the silence of his small room. His eyes fell on the wall adorned with photographs, a snapshot of him and Emma at a school event, laughter frozen in time, another of his mother kneeling beside him, a sunflower in their small backyard. Those images held warmth, yet also reminded him of what he had to lose. Resolute, he shifted his perspective. Maybe this was not just about academic acclaim or recognition. It was about connecting with something deeper within himself. There was power in the act of creating, and if he could encapsulate his experiences and dreams into his project, perhaps he would find more than just external validation. He dedicated the next few days to refining his proposal, pouring heart and soul into the vision of sustainable water filtration for those communities he had witnessed struggling. Graphs and illustrations accompanied the narrative of resilience that he felt reflected his journey, his father's struggles, his mother's incessant support, and the rich stories of neighbors who relied on contaminated water. But as he crafted each section, an underlying fear gnawed at him. What if he failed to convey the urgency, the necessity of his project to the judges? During one late-night session, he fell asleep at the desk, dreams filled with imagined criticisms cutting deeper than any verbal assault. Startled awake, he sat up, breathing heavily, heart racing with the adrenaline of dread. To push back against the tide of fear, Alex sought solace in a local park, a place where nature thrived, a stark contrast to the academic pressures looming over him. He walked among the trees, feeling the roots of the plants intertwining beneath him, their unseen depths reminding him of his own roots, the humble beginnings that shaped his perspective. Just as these plants needed nurturing to thrive, he realized he needed to cultivate his aspirations. The next day, armed with this newfound resolve, he shared his project details with Emma. They met at their usual coffee spot, the sunlight pouring through the window, illuminating the determination in his eyes. He laid out his ideas, anxious, heart pounding as he spoke. Would she see the potential he felt? Her response was immediate and genuine, her enthusiasm infectious. "This is incredible, Alex. You're not just creating a project, you're creating change. You have to believe in it as much as I do." Alex found the courage for vulnerability, opening up about his fears of judgment, of being dismissed as a kid from the wrong side of town. Emma listened intently, validating his feelings, yet pushing him to confront the root of his apprehension. "Look, you don't have to carry all that weight alone. This isn't about proving anything to anyone. You're doing this for you and those who need it most." Her unwavering support sparked something vital inside him. He recognized that the journey was not solely about achieving accolades, it was about forging connections that mattered. With renewed sense of empowerment, he set back to the drawing board, focused and unyielding. Time unraveled, and the deadline loomed like a spectre. As he hovered over the final submission button, a knot tightened in his stomach. He hesitated, fingers poised in motion. This was more than a proposal. It was the embodiment of his evolution, a testament that he was no longer willing to be a mere background character. With one deliberate breath, he pressed submit, and the act reverberated through him, a blend of fear, exhilaration, and an undeniable thrill. But just as he allowed himself a moment of fleeting satisfaction, another revelation crept in. How would this change his relationship with Emma? Could he still maintain their bond as he ventured into uncharted territory? The real test loomed ahead, and as he felt the weight of the decision settle in his chest, he realized he was on the brink of not just external confrontation, but an internal reckoning. What awaited him now was unknown, and with uncertainty crackling in the air, he finally grasped that the journey had truly begun. The days following his submission were a blur of anticipation and restlessness. An undercurrent of anxiety ebbed beneath Alex's newfound confidence, now sharpened by uncertainty about the future. He paced his small apartment, rehearsing for a pitch meeting scheduled just weeks away, an opportunity that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. His evenings were consumed by late-night brainstorming sessions, crafting elaborate scenarios in his head of how others would react to his proposal. More than the fear of failure loomed large. It was the weight of expectation. With every iteration of his pitch in front of the mirror, he felt a flicker of resilience coalesce inside him. Yet there lingered a chasm in his heart, an unease about how success might alter his dynamics with Emma. Their friendship was built on shared insecurities and dreams, yet now he found himself straddling a line he couldn't clearly define. Would his ascent lead to a rift, or would they grow together? One afternoon, Alex decided to confront the swirling thoughts weighing him down. He organized his notes meticulously, each section supporting a different facet of his project. As he positioned his graphs, he aimed to weave a narrative that not only spotlighted his findings, but also appealed to the humanity in each individual who listened. Every line he drafted, however, brought forth memories of his childhood, moments when he longed for belonging, for acknowledgement. When he met Emma later that week, he had not only restructured his pitch, but had also prepared himself for a conversation that danced around his lingering feelings. "I feel ready, but I can't shake this feeling of change. It's as if I'm standing at a crossroads," he admitted over coffee. The aroma of roasted beans hung thick in the air, each inhale grounding him. "Change can be scary, but sometimes it's a good thing," Emma replied, her tone measured yet empathetic. "You have the chance to influence lives. You can't let fear imprison you." Her words hit deeply, awakening dormant beliefs in him. It wasn't simply about the proposal anymore, it was about impact. The view shifted as he peered into his future, contemplating a life steeped in purpose rather than one constrained by fear. Without hesitation, he pushed back against doubt, activating a decisive clarity. Maybe it's more than just a project. It's a voice for those who feel unheard. But a thought nagged at him. Would the judges hear him? As the meeting approached, his anticipation morphed into a focused intensity. He practiced his pitch repeatedly, tailoring his diction and emulating the confident demeanor he had observed in those sleek, polished peers. Despite the rehearsals, moments of hesitation slipped in, reminding him of his insecurities. They swirled like ghosts, whispering that he was still that boy with a little less polish. The night before the pitch, sleepless thoughts crowded his mind, oscillating between hope and anxiety. As he lay in bed, he envisioned delivering his ideas with clarity and purpose. He could see the judges' faces, eager to hear him, yet he also recalled his father's cautious words about dreams and expectations. Would he rise or fall? It felt like a moment pregnant with possibility, but riddled with peril. Finally, he drifted into an uneasy sleep, waking every few hours to replay his pitch in his mind. The gravity of the impending meeting weighed heavily on him. On the day of the pitch, as he approached the venue, he observed the vibrant energy that buzzed around him. Students huddled in clusters, laughter eclipsing their anxiety. Suddenly, a thought struck him. He was no longer just a participant. He was a voice woven into this tapestry of aspirations. In that instant, a ripple of defiance surged within him. Perhaps, just perhaps, stepping into the spotlight was his way of reframing his identity. With every step, he chose to confront those fears, letting each doubt dissipate. As he stood before the judges, his heart raced like a conductor pacing a symphony, ready to unleash his carefully crafted narrative. Would they resonate with his voice? Would he embody a bridge between vision and action? The critical moment had arrived, and the unfamiliar thrill of vulnerability, mingled with newfound determination, pulsed through him. But just when he was about to begin, a familiar face emerged from among the crowd, and a rush of recognition flooded his senses. It was someone who could either bolster his confidence or cast a shadow on his moment. The stakes were suddenly raised, and with each calculated breath he braced himself for the reaction that could shift everything he had faced so far. The moment trembled with an intensity that electrified the air around Alex. The familiar face that had slipped through the crowd was unmistakable. It was David, a former classmate. In high school, David had embodied everything Alex aspired to be: charismatic, confident, effortlessly popular. Now here he was, standing mere feet away, armed with a penetrating gaze that seemed to dissect Alex's every thought. Alex could feel his pulse quicken. The connection was overwhelming, throwing him into a swirling vortex of self-doubt. While he had meticulously prepared for this moment, the possibility of David's judgment now loomed large in his mind. Would he see through the facade of confidence and uncover the boy who still struggled to prove his worth? Would he expose the insecurities Alex had tried so hard to leave behind? He took a deep breath, centering himself once more. The judges' faces blurred as he focused on the task ahead. His voice was his vehicle, and he had no other option but to drive it forward. He scanned the judges, hoping to latch onto their expressions for even a hint of encouragement. As he thought of all the hours spent refining his narrative, anxiety melted into purpose. "I'm ready," he whispered under his breath, rallying himself. He began his pitch, intertwining statistics with compelling stories that painted the gravity of his project. Each word felt like a brushstroke, filling the canvas with vivid hues of impact and empathy. As he spoke, he deliberately shifted his perspective away from the crowd, from David, and back toward the mission underlying his hard work. But then, mid-sentence, he caught a glimpse of David's face again. Something shifted within him. The voice in his head that had once been critical transformed into a steady campfire. It illuminated the insecurities as much as it warned against them. The fear that had gripped him twisted into clarity. David was merely human, with flaws and struggles that he too faced, much like Alex. "Fear shouldn't silence our voices," he declared, the newfound strength flowing through him. "Each one of us carries a story worth telling, a truth we must share." The words spilled out with a fervor he had never known he possessed. As he finished, silence enveloped the room. Unexpectedly, applause broke through like sunlight piercing the morning mist. Alex's heart surged. Had he truly connected? The celebration was not merely for his project, but for his transformation, his willingness to confront the fears that had threatened to bind him. The applause from the judges felt like a balm for the childhood wounds that had visited him relentlessly. Yet even amid that moment of triumph, unease stirred. David had not clapped. His expression remained inscrutable, contemplative. The shift from validation to trepidation threatened to unravel everything Alex had just built. What weighed on that exchanged gaze? Was it envy or admiration? Moments later, the judges called for questions. Alex prepared for scrutiny, bracing himself against the potential for doubt, intent on leaning into this unexpected evolution. He wanted to radiate his newfound confidence, but knew he had to be prepared for any challenge. be it from the judges or David, who stood silently in the corner with the potential to either validate or invalidate his experience. Will I be enough? Alex thought, standing on the precipice of another uncomfortable confrontation. The moment had heightened significance, not just professionally, but personally, and he was compelled to lean into both. How he navigated this labyrinth of emotions could very well dictate the trajectory of his future endeavors, as well as his truest self. Alex's resolve deepened. He had seized an opportunity to demonstrate not only his skills, but his essence. But as he eyed David once more, the question loomed. What would this confrontation uncover? With vulnerability crackling in the air, he stood ready to face both himself and his past. Would he emerge stronger, or would the shadows linger, more disruptive than before? The next round of inquiries was set to ignite this pivotal moment, and Alex was prepared at last to embrace the complexities that lay ahead. The first question shattered the silence, tentative yet probing. Alex, tell us more about what inspired this project. It was a judge, a middle-aged woman with silver-streaked hair who leaned forward with genuine curiosity. Alex's heart raced. This was not just a test of his project, it was a chance to reveal the deeper purpose behind his work. The room felt charged, like the lead-up to a storm. Taking a moment to steady his breath, he summoned the courage that had surged within him only moments before. My inspiration stems from a belief in equity, he began, the words rushing forth with a newfound conviction. Growing up, I often found myself in spaces that felt exclusive, where stories were dictated by privilege. This project was born out of a desire to change that. Everyone's truth deserves to be heard. He glanced back to the judges. To his surprise, the room felt less distant now. He could see receptive expressions, a nod here, a faint smile there. The soothing hum of their engagement bolstered his confidence. As more questions poured in, each inquiry turned into a buoy that lifted his narrative further. He discussed the obstacles he faced in assembling his project and how they mirrored the barriers many individuals encounter, those very obstacles that often go unnoticed. These challenges taught me resilience, he explained, a subtle strength ringing in his voice as he recounted struggles that had plagued others before him. The debate grew lively as one judge challenged him, her skepticism almost palpable. But don't you think you risk oversimplifying their stories? She pressed, folding her arms. You might only be scratching the surface. In that moment, uncertainty flickered like a candle's flame, threatening to diminish his hard-fought confidence. Alex could feel the heat of David's gaze intensifying in the corner, the weight of an unspoken judgment. The taste of doubt flooded his mouth. Was he really enough to tackle such complex narratives? But then he recalled his own words, fear shouldn't silence voices. Perhaps, he replied, tempering his tone, to invite dialogue rather than defensiveness. But simplification can be a first step. If we wait for complete understanding, we may not act at all. He felt the unyielding tension in the room shift subtly. There was a power in vulnerability, a glimmer of recognition that turned skepticism into contemplation. It wasn't just about the project anymore, it was about owning his truth. The judges continued to engage, their questions morphing into a deeper exploration of his ideas. Each answer became a brick, fortifying the foundation of his newfound identity. He was no longer just presenting, he was advocating, igniting passions within himself and inspiring those around him. As the final question approached, Alex noticed David shift ever so slightly. The flicker of interest in his eyes clashed with the detachment he'd radiated earlier. It ignited a flicker of hope in Alex's chest, a hope that perhaps this confrontation might lead to something more profound than mere judgment. Alex, the last judge began, what do you hope to achieve moving forward with this initiative? Drawing a deep breath, Alex seized this moment. I want to continue amplifying those stories that deserve to be heard, to challenge narratives, and to create platforms where everyone's truth can find a voice. This is just the beginning. As he spoke, a sense of gravity settled within his chest. The weight of his aspirations compressed the uncertainty that had lingered for so long. But as the judges nodded, signaling the end, and the applause thundered once again, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that David's reaction might carry more weight than the judges. What did his former classmate think now? As the judges exited, Alex turned to face David, who wore an inscrutable expression. Was it admiration or challenge that flickered in the depths of those eyes? The encounter felt imminent, and Alex knew he faced a decision that could unravel or redefine him entirely. Determination surged through him as he stepped forward, ready to confront whatever awaited him in that gaze. In that moment, both past and present hung in the balance, and as Alex prepared to take the plunge into this unfolding narrative, one question eclipsed his thoughts. Would this encounter shatter the image David held of him, or would it provide a path to understanding beneath the layers of judgment? Alex took a step closer, his heart thundering in his chest. David's eyes narrowed slightly, assessing him like a hawk scanning for weakness. Time seemed to stretch, each second heavy with the weight of their shared history. In the silence that surrounded them, Alex felt a surge of both determination and vulnerability. He had just stepped into a new version of himself, and now he had to ensure that this newfound self was visible to David. "David," he ventured, his voice steadier than he felt, "can we talk?" The corner of David's mouth twitched, but it was unclear if it was a smile or an expression of disdain. "You've certainly found your voice," he replied, a hint of sarcasm threading through his words. But under that facade, Alex sensed an ember of curiosity, a flicker that suggested the clash between judgment and intrigue might be shifting. "I didn't mean to put on a show," Alex responded, his tone earnest. "It's just, I've realized that standing up and being heard isn't something I should shy away from." "I guess you've always had potential, Alex," David said, crossing his arms. The defensive posture only fueled Alex's resolve. The conversation needed to break through this emotional barrier. "Potential isn't enough. I want to act to create change." The words felt liberating as they rolled off his tongue. "I want to do more than speak. I want to empower others to speak up too. But I can't do it alone. I need allies. I know we've been through some tough times, but—" David's brow furrowed slightly, and for a moment Alex feared he had miscalculated the depth of the other man's resistance. Would this confrontation destroy their prospects for understanding or deepen the cuts of comparison? "But what?" David prompted, his eyes narrowing as they locked onto Alex's. "But I'm not here for their approval or for validation. It's about taking what I've learned and turning it into something meaningful." David scoffed, turning his gaze a bit away. "You really think that's enough to change a narrative? You think words can shift mindsets? You'll be drowned out, just like those voices you want to uplift." The doubt began to claw at Alex's insides. He knew David was speaking from a place of experience, a voice wrapped in the privilege of cynicism. Yet something in Alex understood that vulnerability was necessary to confront that very cynicism. "What if I told you that you could help me?" he asked, pushing through the discomfort of asking. "You have influence, and your perspective could be invaluable in this fight. If there's any part of you that believes in equity, we could work together." David's expression was a mix of skepticism and something else, something like intrigue, maybe a flicker of regret for the past. For a moment, the air thickened with tension, neither willing to let go of the moment. "Why should I help you?" he said, his voice softening slightly as if testing the waters of a new conversation. "Because you've been where I am now, and you know the weight of being dismissed for wanting to create dialogue," Alex replied. "You've seen how narratives can trap people. Use your voice, David. you could make a difference. A flash of memory pulled at Alex, a time when they shared laughter and dreams before the shadows of judgment set in. It was a risk to let his guard down, to expose this wish for partnership, but treating this instance as a moment to grow was also a way to reclaim his power. But would David see it that way? Would this be a rekindling of respect or a deepening rift? The silence stretched, loaded with questions Alex had no power to answer just yet. Looking directly back at David, he held his breath, waiting for a response that, regardless of its shape, could redefine the path ahead. Would this be the moment that led to collaboration, or would it leave them trapped in old roles, forever locked in opposition? The answer lay just out of reach. The silence between Alex and David felt like a chasm, filled with unstarted dialogues that held the potential for renewal or resentment. Alex's heart raced, thundering in his chest, as he awaited a response. David's expression remained inscrutable, but a flicker of contemplation crossed his features. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. "You know, I never expected to see you here standing up like this. It's, admirable," he admitted, albeit begrudgingly. "But you wake up every day fighting an uphill battle. The privilege you think you're challenging isn't going away just because you want it to." In the face of skepticism, Alex felt the weight of his instincts surging. "You're right. It's not that simple. But doing nothing doesn't change anything either. It's time for more than just surviving. It's about thriving." His voice rang out clear, a declaration rooted in both vulnerability and determination. David shifted slightly, his arms uncrossing as he studied Alex. "Okay, say I wanted to help," he conceded. "What's in it for me, really? Why should I risk my status for something that seems uncertain?" Alex leaned in, vulnerability tempered by resolve. "Because we both know the struggles that lie at the core of this issue, disconnection driven by privilege. You have the ability to empathize. You can lend your voice to this narrative and change minds that wouldn't listen otherwise. Together, we can bridge that gap." David's brow furrowed, his skepticism battling against a flicker of intrigue. "You really think we can do that? You think my presence will lift your voice?" "Yes, it might even give you a chance to redefine what that presence means to you," Alex replied, holding David's gaze. "Imagine being part of something bigger than our experiences, making sure no voice is left unheard." There was a pause, a moment where the chaos of competition scattered as they met each other's gaze at a pivotal intersection. "All right," David finally agreed, the edge in his voice softening. "Count me in, but you'll have to show me exactly what you're aiming for. I can't back something without seeing the fulfillment of that vision." A spark ignited within Alex, a sense of triumph mingled with hope. The collaborative effort could become a formidable force for change, helping each of them reclaim dimensions of their identity previously overshadowed by expectations and judgments. As they stepped away from the weight of their past, Alex felt lighter, even invigorated, by the trajectory of this conversation. This moment had solidified his resolve, empowering him to embrace a future cultivated from understanding and purpose. In the weeks that followed, the two worked together seamlessly, shaping a plan that chimed with both of their aspirations. They hosted workshops at schools, rallying awareness around issues of accessibility and privilege, weaving their narratives into a larger tapestry of collective struggle. The journey was both challenging and triumphant. Alex experienced the ebb and flow of vulnerability as he learned to navigate this new partnership. Peter's support enriched his vision, pushing him to communicate his message. He finally felt seen, both as an individual and as a representative for a cause that went beyond mere aspiration. Months later, as they presented their findings at an innovation summit, Alex felt an overwhelming wave of confidence wash over him. The judges applauded, the audience engaged, and the narrative transcended the confines of individual labels, embedding itself into a movement. Standing before the audience, an ambassador of change, Alex recognized how far he had traveled from that summer day when he pulled Emma from the depths. This was a culmination of personal evolution, fueled by courage, understanding, and vital connections cultivated through shared experience. He had reborn himself, a reformulated presence, clear-eyed and compellingly alive. As the applause echoed, he glanced towards David, who stood beside Emma, radiating acknowledgement. Their support felt like a validation of not just his journey, but the collective journey he had sought to embark upon since reclaiming his voice. With a newfound sense of ownership, Alex realized the importance of not just aspiring for greatness in isolation, but recognizing the power that unity held. Each step he took further defined his position, not as the janitor's son, but as a force of change, ready to challenge narratives and uplift voices along the way. This transformation marked the beginning, where the countdown to his dreams shifted gears, unbound by insecurity. He stood proudly on the precipice of personal achievement, exuding a solid confidence born from hard-won experience. Now was the time for Alex to step fully into the spotlight, a harbinger of hope for those who felt voiceless. He had conquered more than just the waters of the pool that summer day. He had conquered himself. You need to subscribe now to witness more extraordinary journeys of personal transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Your likes fuel the algorithm and bring more impactful stories to light. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Your engagement matters, so comment below with your reactions and theories about Alex's heroic journey. Let's keep the movement going.